What's going on, spectators? This is it, the final week of October, and Jesus and I are wrapping up the month in style with a pre-code horror comic Grail tale submitted by one of you, our listeners. And you know we've got specs and recent pickups to talk about too. So bring some flowers and avoid the gaze of the melting eyes. This is episode 15.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectators, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Hello and welcome everybody to episode 15 of Spectales, a comic book podcast, where we dig into everything to do with chasing and collecting the comic books we love. We're your hosts, Jake and Jesus. Jesus, how's it going tonight?
It's going awesome, man. Very excited for this episode. Coming off our last episode.
I think it's going to be jam-packed for all of you who did not yet. Our previous episode, we just did an interview with Martin Morazzo, the artist and co-creator of the Ice Cream Man series. That's episode 14. If you haven't listened to that yet, it's definitely worth checking out. It's a lot of fun. But you're listening to episode 15 right now, and that one's going to be jam-packed with a lot of great stuff too, including a pre-code horror Grail tale submitted by one of the listeners. So I'm actually extremely excited about that one.
Yeah, man, I think the pre-code horror is something that both of us have been, dipping our toes in. And then after this Grail tale, I think we're just going all in right now.
Oh, and can you think of a better way to close out the October with a pre-code horror Grail tale? And it was awesome. We just said on, what was that, episode 13, we asked people if they had anything out there, and one of the listeners reached out and said, yeah, absolutely. And damn, it was a good one. So, I don't know. I guess we get lucky.
Yeah, it just happened without happening. We didn't super plan to be all horror in October, but it worked out, and I'm glad it did because this Grail tale is pretty cool.
We sort of talked about it, right? Like we were like, oh, what are we gonna do for October? And you're like, well, my family's watching horror movies for the entire month. And have you fallen off? Did you guys actually complete that, or have you been watching baseball the whole time?
Look, man, I'm really... So first of all, how dare you? Second of all, we did very well for the first 2 days. And then it just fell off from there on our horror watching. Actually, I just watched another horror movie today, and I tried to get them into watching The Thing from 2011, and again, that didn't work out. So
wait, hold on. Why are you watching The Thing from 2011? There's no need. Go back and watch the John Carpenter version, which isn't even the original. No, I know, but there's no reason to even watch the 2011 version because John Carpenter perfected the movie.
Well, I know that, but listen, I watched a different horror movie and it said similar movies. And I was really lazy at the time, so I just clicked it and I just played it.
Oh, okay. So there's no good reason. It's just I was lazy.
No, there's no. I
didn't.
didn't say there was a good reason. I just said I was watching the movie.
Okay. All right. Well, horror movies aside, horror comics have been a really great subject matter for this month. I've picked up a ton of creepy issues. I'm still looking for my first pre-code horror book. I haven't grabbed one yet, but don't worry. I will let everybody know when I do. In this particular case, why don't we talk about some recent pickups that we do have? Do you want to lead into it, or you want me to go first?
You can go first. Yeah, you go first this time.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's not a problem. I can go first. My recent pickup does come with a little bit of a PSA because I kind of made a boo-boo. And and it's really of my own fault. Just a real short story. Last Friday, my son had off from school. He's 13. He gets really into collecting like Star Wars figures and things like that. And we are, I'd say, about 3.5 hours away from Kansas City, where we live. And there is a toy store north of Kansas City that he absolutely loves. He loves their Instagram feed, everything they have online, and it's like every single figure he wants. So he's been asking me for months to just drive down there and go. And this last Friday, it was like, hey, I don't really have a good excuse to not. I mean, I didn't want to go to work that day anyway, so I took a half day, and I was like, dude, guess what? We're going to KC, and he was all about it. So we got down there, and I'm not gonna lie, part of why I was okay with going as well was the store that he wanted to go to that sells all the Star Wars figures also happens to sell a ton of comic books.
And just by chance. Just by chance.
Yeah, well, I got lucky that time too. So, but they don't do new stuff, right? They don't have this. They're not doing the inventory for new books. They're literally they pretty much just buy collections and sell them. They'll buy Grail books and stuff. So they had a good sized wall with a bunch of Grails that some of which I really liked, some I couldn't afford. They had slabs, they had raws, and then they had, man, I want to say just in the room I was in, a good 30 to 40 long boxes, and some of them were marked $1, some of them were marked 50% off. Every long box, anything in a long box was 50% off. So it was just like, just go digging. And some of them, they even said, they're like, we didn't have enough wall space for all the books that would be wall books. And so you could go and find a ton of them. And I was going through, I mean, they were exaggerating a little bit on that, but I did find books that were, they had early, Amazing Spider-Man books. And by early, I mean books within the first 30, were, I mean, none of the key ones, but they had books that were in the first 30 for 50% off. Like, there were a lot of good books. So I'm going to talk about the one that I got very excited about when I found it in the box. This is Astonishing Tales number 12. This is a Kazar book. He's on the cover, but it is the second appearance of Man-Thing. We've talked about Man-Thing before on our show, kind of like what book is going to hit when it comes to Man-Thing, and there's a few that are already popping off. His first appearance, however, is not in a comic book. It's in a magazine, which we've talked about. I got that one. And so this is Man-Thing's second appearance. However, it is his very first appearance in a comic book. So I thought it was a great find. Literally got it for $25. It was marked 50, got it for 25. So I thought it was a really good deal. It's a mid-grade copy. I think that this thing's falling somewhere in the 6.5 to 7 realm. So it's a okay grade. However, this trip was, as I said, we're about 3 hours, depending on if you're stopping for gas, food, stuff like that. So I drove for damn near 8 hours that day, and it was there and back. We went, we had we had a great time, came back, and he loaded up on Star Wars figures. He got way more than I did. But it was kind of a for him sort of trip, and it was, like I said, just a good time. However, we get back, and it's like midnight or something like that, but I'm exhausted from having driven all day. And so he's like, hey, take your comic book out. Let's see it. And I'm half asleep. I'm like, yeah, sure, let's take the book out. So I open it up, and I take the book out, and I'm exhausted. But I made a mistake. This is where the PSA comes in. I did not take the tape off the bag.
Oh man.
Right?
No.
I opened it up, left the tape on there, just flipped it with my finger, took the book out, and then when I went to put the book back in my head I'm telling myself, don't get that tape pull. Don't get that tape pull. And then, like, in slow motion, I watch it happen. I'm like, no. and wouldn't you know it, I get a freaking tape pull right on the title, Kazar, right across the front. And I don't know if the light's going to allow you to see it. It's right at the top of that.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
It's not huge, but it's a tape pull, and this book was in much better condition before I bought it.
So you're part of the ones where we say it's been loved. It's been loved a lot on that one.
No, that's not even love. That's just a stupid mistake. So,
I mean,
anyway,
it's happened to everybody, man. It's happened to me. There's a book I'm gonna be posting here soon at Guaranteed, and it's Amazing Adventures 11, which is the furry beast,
yeah, Fur Beast, yeah.
and that happened to me on that book, and it has an altered label on it because of it. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's the first one I've ever gotten back on it. There's nothing on it besides that, so that gives us that label. But it just sucks, man. It sucks. I remember how I felt when I had it. I wasn't tired and sleepy. I was just upset, and I was like, "Oh man, how could I make this rookie mistake?" It's kind of how it feels.
This is the first time it's happened to me, and it'll be the last time. I do normally take the tape off. I absolutely hate Scotch tape, and so because it's unruly. It's just it bends to no one's will but its own. So I take that tape off every time. Anyway, so the PSA for everybody out there: take the damn tape off. If you're so worried about it, put new tape on afterwards. It is cheap enough. Don't make the same stupid mistake I did. It's not worth it. Just take the tape off.
And just real quick too, there's a couple other options. Obviously, there's the resealable bags, so you can do the resealable bags.
Yep.
And then there's a more extreme option, which is what I mentioned to you, is this liquid called Bestine. I don't know how to say it, but you can use that and it'll take off, but you just have to have a lot of patience with it. But yeah, the other options as well. But yeah, if you have the Scotch on there, just take it off, man, and put some new one on.
Yep, exactly. So that's my pickup. That's my recent little Grail tale of some sort. So what do you got?
All right, man. So mine, I have 2 books here. I again, like I mentioned to you, I went to the Collector Con here in Houston this past weekend. It was pretty cool. It was a couple things on it. Huge, a lot of vendors, but not that many comic book vendors. It was a lot more collectible cards, sports cards, NFL, MLB, NBA, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, that kind of stuff. A lot of other cool stuff too, like artist prints, stuff of that nature. I think they even had a full-blown concert going at some point where I could barely hear myself think. But they did have a new vendor that I hadn't seen here in Houston. I think he's from a little bit farther north than Dallas, maybe Oklahoma, I don't know. But he had a lot of cool books. I bought a couple books off of him. And this goes back to one of our previous episodes. I don't know the exact episode, but we talked about how if you are a Batman, like if you do like Batman and his storylines, and you like a certain writer, which I know you like the certain writer a lot, that this was a very good run. So I finally found Batman New 52 #1 in perfect condition.
Oh, wow.
And #2 in perfect condition for a ridiculous price on both of these. I got both of these books for $40. So
you're kidding me.
Nope. $20 each. So
that is amazing. Those are, yeah. I mean, but of course that is my absolute I have read a lot of Batman. Maybe that's relative to me. I have read a lot of Batman as far as I'm concerned. So I still personally believe that first 11 issues in the New 52 are just perfect. So yeah, I don't need to keep going. I've said that before.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I bought them. I haven't read them. Again, these are in perfect condition. These are 98 candidates, both of them. But I'm gonna read them. I doubt that I'm gonna submit them or anything. I'm just gonna read them. I have 1 and 2. I think in another episode I talked about picking up number 9 and 10 or 10 and 11. I don't remember. And I think 14 and 15. And I got those for $1 each. So I'm slowly putting the run together. I think this is a good example of how I collect and how I cobble together a run. If I'm going to be putting a run together that I want to read, I don't go after it all at the same time. I take my time. I don't start reading them unless I got them in order. So I have 1 and 2. I need to get 3, 4, and 5, which I think 5 is another expensive one, right? I think it's 5, the one that's expensive. because it's the first appearance of the Court of Owls or something like that, right?
I believe that's 6.
So,
6.
well, five and 6, I guess, are the ones that are expensive. So,
5
yeah, I
and
mean, I
6,
anticipate.
Yeah, they're all good. I mean, 5, I think, is the it's the first cameo appearance of the Court of Owls, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I anticipate I'll have some trouble finding those at some decent prices. But just to show you that, I mean, you can still get, I mean, this book is what, I mean, what would you say this number one goes for generally? Like, you see
I
it.
mean, it's been going up recently, and it's all over the place. In a 9.8, if it's already graded, CGC 9.8 probably goes anywhere from 120 to $160. But that's the thing. It's I mean, that's what it's listed for. I don't know that people are paying that much for it because it's not an in-demand book yet. If the Court of Owls become, a popular character that appears in a movie, characters that appear in a movie, maybe that first 11, that run where, about the Court of Owls, maybe that pops up, and in value. I'd love to see it. Hell, I would love to see it in animation, just animated, right? But anything, because I think the Court of Owls are great.
Yeah, and if it's that good, I'm sure that something down the line would happen with it, especially with those characters. Like, you're not the only one that's mentioned that it was real cool how they did the Court of Owls and that they probably should have done it sooner.
Yeah.
So I definitely think they're gonna do something. And that's the other thing too. Like, that's another reason why I'm getting them as well, because you're not the first person that said that. So there's a lot of potential there. Again, I like to read, and if it's a good run, I want to read it. So I'm already getting the enjoyment out of it. If something does happen with it and it does pop off, and I can sell these and make some money off of them, so I can buy another run, I'll just continue doing that, And it doesn't hurt to buy these right now, if you can find them at decent prices.
Oh yeah, if you can get them at those prices, I think that's great. I think it's a good pickup. Nice.
Yeah.
Anything else of note?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can talk about it a little bit. I did pick up this really cool, which I've talked about in the previous episode, the Tupac homage cover well, I got a print of it.
Yeah,
and
okay,
I got it,
that's the print.
And I got it signed. You can see it right there by the artist.
Yep.
David Sanchez, really cool guy, really nice, down to earth guy. I don't know, maybe he'll be on our podcast in another episode. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
I just really like the print. I really like the style. I'm a big Tupac fan. That's why I bought the book too. The book doesn't ship until November, is what he told me.
Oh, okay.
So that book is coming in. That'll be on my recent pickups when I do get it in. But I just thought, hey, he's here. He's a really cool guy to talk to. I like the print. Let me go ahead and pick it up. So I did. Yeah,
that's pretty sweet, man. Nice. So recent pickups are done, and now we get to the part that I'm actually most excited about, and that is the pre-code horror book Grail tale. So, are you taking this one? You taking it? You gonna tell this tale?
You want to take it, Ben?
I can. You can go ahead and do it. I like the way you read.
All right, I'll take it, man. I'll take it, and then I'll add my little sauce to it, my little secret sauce to it. But just so y'all know, at least for me, whenever I read this tale, I was like, man, this is so cool. And then when I saw the book, I was like, man, this book is legit. Like, this is a really cool cover. Like, I really like this cover. I don't know. It's one of my top covers now. Just after reading this tale, and now I want it bad. But based on this, it's gonna take me forever to get it. All right, so so this Grail tale comes from Matt. And what is his Instagram handle, Jake?
Matt's Instagram handle is Abbotsford_comic_fan. So Abbotsford, ABBOTSFORD, Abbotsford comic fan. And I believe Abbotsford I think he's based in Canada. So yeah. I think that's what what it's short for, what it stands for.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in this Grail tour where he's from. All right, so Matt writes to us. He was kind enough to send us kind of a write-up. So I'm just going to kind of read it and kind of talk through it, and we can also discuss it as we read it. But he starts off saying that this Grail tale starts late one night, and that he was looking through an article about the top 50 pre-code horror covers of all time, which is something that a lot of us do. At least I feel like you'll look through what are the best covers for this artist, what are the best covers for this run, et cetera, et cetera. So this was top 50 pre-code horror covers of all time. And that's when he said he saw it. He saw it, and he immediately fell in love with it. It was love at first sight for a horror book from Atlas, which is the precursor to Marvel, right?
Yep.
So this book is called Astonishing number 30. So that's it. The name of the title is Astonishing. It's issue number 30. Do you want to talk about the cover right now?
Yeah, I think we got to start with this cover. It is it is mind melting. It is fantastic. Okay, so you've got the classic pre-code style with extra gore. You've got these two people that are in appearingly like a graveyard late at night, and one's a man, one's a woman, and in the sky there are these two like giant bulging eyeballs, and this light is coming out of the eyes, looking at the man and melting this man like he is turning into a pool of blood. But you can see his bones, and you can see like whether it's some of his clothing or his skin, and it's melting off his body. And the woman kind of looks like there's an ambiguous look to her. Like she's not quite mortified. She almost looks like angry. Like, how dare you melt in front of me? And it's just this, I don't understand what she's doing, why she's mad. He's the one just getting melted by eyeballs from the sky. But damn, is it a grabbing cover. It just seizes your eyes, and you're like, you have to look at me now.
Yeah, man, this thing is so cool. So a couple other interesting details. 10-cent cover. It has Astonishing on there. The top of it says Terror Tales in the Night. What were these two people doing in the cemetery in the middle of the night? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that. But yeah, she is kind of, I don't know, kind of half upset, half scared. I don't know. Doesn't want to put her hand in the light. The pooling of the blood. I don't know. I mean, if you look behind it, you can see some of the gravestones probably are melting too. It looks like, I don't know, but the pooling of the blood and I don't know if it's blood or just his clothes too, just pooling at the bottom and turning into liquid. It's just so cool, man. It's just a really cool cover. Really, I don't know, encapsulates or captures the pre-code horror and why people love these covers, man. They're just so cool. They're like, I don't know. They're just really cool. That's all I can say about them. I can't say enough good things about how cool they are. Like this piece right here is what it is, like an art piece, and it's something you talk about. Like, man, this is so cool. What's the artist's name? Who's the artist? And the artist is Joe Manley. It's a Joe Manley cover. So pretty cool.
And that's 1954, right? Is that I believe that's
yeah, February of 1954. So yeah, so I can definitely, when he said that, as soon as he saw it, he fell in love with it. I was like, oh man, that's cool. That happens a lot with certain covers, at least to me. Like, we're like, oh man, that's a cool cover. I will buy that book, even if it's not a cool story. Even if it's a cool cover, yeah, I have to have it.
It's pre-code horror. You're not buying what's inside. You're buying what's on the face of it. Yeah. And just so you know, there's actually a really low grade copy on auction right now with 2 days left on eBay. So
what is it at? What is it sitting at?
$76. It's in Jesus's like, hey, this is going for way under.
Hey, first of all,
gonna end. I know. I had to put that backhand insult.
How dare you? How dare you? The second one today. Today is the insult. The backhanded compliment episode.
But the better news for you is this auction's going to end before this episode actually airs. So,
so you're saying I can't multitask?
No, I'm saying that you can go and grab this before any of the listeners do, because it won't be available when the listeners do. So,
fair enough. What is it? What grade is it?
Oh, I mean, this is.
Oh, so it's raw?
It's raw. It's a really low grade copy though. I mean, it's got chipping all over the place.
Can you still tell the cover? And it's still cool?
Yeah. The cover is actually, the image. It's just chipping all around the outside. So,
all right, sold. You sold me.
I think Jesus just bought this book. So, but it's
We'll
on
see.
auction. It's on auction. So there's 17 bids. So people are bidding on this thing.
Okay. Well, that's actually a good segue into the rest of the story. So,
All right, go ahead.
so Matt knew he was on a mission to find this book, and he wanted it graded to avoid any possible restoration, which is really smart because in these pre-code horror, there is a lot of restoration on some of these books that are raw because I guess restoration wasn't looked at as it is now, especially with the grading. So I guess it was more common is what I'm trying to say. So with just under 40 copies on the registry at this time, he knew it was going to take time to find the right copy for him for sale. So he set up a safe search on eBay, as most of us do. He was checking the auction houses. He was asking around Instagram. And then he played the waiting game because, again, rare book. So about 6 months had gone by, and he gets an eBay alert that somebody posted one, and it was in his wheelhouse. So he was able to find the seller outside of eBay, which a lot of us do as well because we don't want to pay those eBay prices, and the sellers don't want to pay the fees on them as well. So he was able to negotiate a private sale. So they finally settled on a number, and he felt really good about it. He was happy. And just before he was about to send the money, he sent him his mailing address. And that killed the deal because that seller refused to ship to Canada. So the deal was off. And I feel like this is something that's more prevalent than we know as far as our comic collecting buddies up in Canada, both buyers and sellers. Sometimes it's just difficult to send up there, and the price just doesn't make sense, the shipping price for both ways. So, and the customs, it's just a hassle. So I understand it, but it does suck. So he refused to ship, so the deal was off. So after that, the guy pulls the book from eBay and he never sees it again. So now he's back at square one. All hope was not lost for him because a few months later, he was on Instagram and he saw a copy. And fortunately, it had only been posted a few minutes before he saw it. So he immediately contacted the seller, no time to waste. And he came to terms real quick with him. And he was able, and the guy said that he shipped to Canada, so he was happy. So you think, okay, boom, that's it. He got it. Well, here's where it gets a little crazy. The guy ships the book, and a few days later, he was excited to receive it, and he checked the tracking every day because he got the tracking from him. But when the book went through customs, something went wrong. It sat in customs for 3 days, and then a week, and then 3 weeks, and then finally a month.
Holy
so he
shit.
contacts the seller. Yeah, I mean, you're waiting for this pre-code horror book that you wanted forever, and now it's stuck in customs. So what do? So he contacts the seller, the shipping company, but you can't do anything because it's in customs. Like, what can you do? Nothing. So he was starting to feel like this book was cursed. Maybe, I don't know, that he was never meant to have this book, I guess. And he put on here, and I just want you to understand, that he's a big fan. He said, the thing is with some scarce books.
He did not say scarce.
He said scarce. He says scarce pre-code horror books versus silver or bronze, or especially modern books. You can usually always find those for sale any day of the week, but not with these. So about a week later, it finally arrived. So it took him about 5 weeks after it was in customs. So apparently his name and the seller's name had been mixed up by the post office, and that's what was causing the issue. So the feeling that he had when he was holding the book in his hand after almost a year of hunting it was surreal. And that's what makes acquiring some of these hard to find pre-code horror Grail books so worth it. Perfect words, perfect ending to that. That's exactly why people go after pre-code horror books.
And yeah, because you don't know when you're going to get one, and when you want one, it'll still take you months to acquire it and to acquire the copy that actually fits you, right? You never know if you're going to find the one that's in your price range and that whole thing. So it's rare. That's a cool story. I went back and checked. Matt actually said scarce. It clearly reads scarce.
No.
Just so you know.
Listen. He's a fan. He knows. He said scarce. Okay, I think
This
we're
really
closing the
shouldn't
book on
be.
that.
This isn't even a funny reoccurring joke. This isn't even good. Why do you keep doing this?
Look, do not get mad because there's a scarce army back there behind us that really just wants it known that scarce is the way to go.
Well, all right. Well, I don't even know how to transition from this.
I do. Hold on, real quick.
Okay,
As we were getting prepared for this, I mean, I feel Instagram is beautiful right now. It's Halloween. Everybody's posting their horror books. I got one of these things that Matt got when I saw this. I was like, this cover is dope. I want this cover. This might be my first pre-code. If it is pre-code, I don't even know. I'm sure it is. Yeah, it is. Check this out, man. This is Ghostly Weird Stories number 122. Look at that.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. So it's like it's got a guy in a spacesuit.
It's got a guy in a spacesuit, but he's in all sorts of despair, I guess. His suit is ripping apart. There's a ship in the background. It says Death Ship. Red cover to the top, yellow in the middle, green suit. It's just a really cool.
The
cool
green
cover.
pops. The green on that yellow really pops.
Look at this guy's face, man.
Yeah, he is not happy.
Yeah, there's a looks like a Saturn.
What's the body behind in the background?
I don't know.
Is that a co-pilot?
Yeah, it's like other astronauts are just floating there. This is an LB Cole cover. I'm sure it's a classic.
LB Cole.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool cover.
Pricey as well.
Well, I was looking it up, man. Let me see here. It's obviously pricey when it gets into the higher amounts. It goes as high as 12,000 in very good condition.
Yeah,
but it's as low as $120 in the lower conditions.
Oh,
which
right.
Yeah, I might take a page out of our friend Ryan at Automatic Comics Books. He goes sometimes for detached covers in these because they're so low grade, but the cover is still nice. It's just the grade is low because it's a detached cover. So I think I might do that.
You know, the thing about the pre-code stuff is, I mean, those are generally PC books, right? I mean, part of the reason why they don't come up for sale as often is not just that there aren't as many, but they also wind up in people's personal collections. The way that this one ended up in Matt's, right? Matt is not putting this back on the market, especially no time soon. And so when they do come up they don't come up often, right? And the low grade, if you're just wanting to have a copy of that book just because you want it, low grade still works, right? You just have to find a copy that agrees with you. So it is less like, if you want a more modern comic book, something that came out in the last couple of decades, a lot of people will tell you that it's either 9.8 or nothing on some modern graded comic books. They don't want anything to do with the lower grades because, hey, they came out 5 years ago. Why would I want anything less than a 9.8? And I know that's not absolute, but that's just
no. Like
talk.
No, I mean that's fair. That's real. That's true. That's the way a lot of collectors talk. For me, I wouldn't necessarily be that way as far as the new. Like I think 9.4 to 9.8 are almost the same book. You know what I mean? Like unless you have that book right up to your face with a magnifying glass, you're not gonna find all the issues with the difference between a 9.4, 9.6, and a 9.8. I mean, and again, sometimes it's the grader too. You have a 9.6 and it's really a 9.8. So. But I get it. I get why people are like that and why people want to be like that. But it's just how people collect, and they're more than welcome to collect that way. I'm not gonna argue about saving money.
No, I don't have anything against it either. So
yeah.
Well, I think we definitely need to give a shout out to Matt. Thank you very much. It was very entertaining. This is exactly what the show is about. We want to tell the stories about collecting these books because I think that it's something that one, people can learn from, and two, I just find it interesting. So,
and what I was just gonna say is we're probably gonna post that book either sometime around when the episode drops or sometime thereafter because it's a cool book and it's Matt's book. So we definitely want you guys to take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, go look him up. Go find, give him a follow. I followed him on Instagram as well. And he's a nice guy, and he's posts a lot of great stuff. So thanks again, Matt. Let us move on to the speculation side of the podcast. So we've got, man, there's a lot of new stuff going on out in the world. And Eternals is coming out. The premiere was recent, and I don't want to jump into any of the spoilers or anything like that, but there are a lot of new characters to get excited about. I'm going to let you take the lead on speculation tonight, but feel free. I don't know if it's related to any of that or not, but I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Floor's yours.
No, it's not. It's not. It's something. It's funny because I've been seeing that I kind of, to an extent, spec in some way like you do when you get on one character and you're just like on that one character. And this kind of has been percolating in my mind. I'm not the first person to say this. I'm probably not gonna be the last person to say this. But with Adam Warlock coming, you start looking at, who can be a villain for him, or however they might use him, or things of that nature. And obviously, the first one that comes up and is the Magus, right? We've talked about. Well, I don't think we've talked about it, but I've heard him talked about. And for those who don't know, Magus is, and this is why I think it's a good spec, is the evil version of Adam Warlock from the future. So there's a lot of time travel stuff going on right now. We have Kang, different versions of Kang. We know Warlock is coming. We know he's been cast from, I think that's the rumor. I think it's actually been confirmed. I don't know, probably. I think, I think James Gunn confirmed it.
Yeah, James Gunn did confirm that Adam Warlock is going to be played by, I'm not even going to attempt to remember his name.
Poulter or something like that.
No, like I said, I'm not even going to try. But
okay.
But he's the kid from We Are the Millers, and he's been in a lot of stuff. I say kid, but he's a man now. I think he was a kid when he did the movie. But yeah, he seems like a full-grown man now, so I better not call him a kid.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not saying that he's going to come out in Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm just saying that it makes sense in some point in the near future to have him. And this is a two-part spec. So the first appearance of Magus is Strange Tales number 178. It's a really cool cover. Adam Warlock on the front with his patented stance with his arms out in front of him.
Yep.
His legs wide open. That's his patented stance. But it also has two other first appearances. It has the first team appearance of the Universal Church of Truth, and it's also the first appearance of the Matriarch, a leader of the Universal Church of Truth. Now, why is that important? Because there's a character in the Moonlight show that's being played by Ethan Hawke that we don't know exactly who it is, but the speculation is that he's some sort of cult leader, and he's also said in interviews that he's taken his cues or his inspiration from the cult leader of that cult that was in Waco in the 90s.
Yep.
I don't know what it's called, but this is a cult. I mean, this is basically a cult, the Universal Church of Truth, and the Matriarch is a leader. Could it be Ethan Hawke's character? Could it be a form of that character or a variation of that character? Who knows? But at least in this book, you have a big Warlock villain, and then a potential cult with the potential leader of the cult that could be Ethan Hawke. So you're getting 2 for 1 in this book. So I'm definitely specking on this book. I'm gonna be trying to pick it up. It's actually cooled off a little bit. A lot of people don't think Magus may come out. I don't know. I still want it. It's a cool cover, so I want it to be part of the collection too.
Nice. I totally agree. I mean, when you're looking at characters that are confirmed, I mean, a lot of people, the Adam Warlock books have kind of gone insane lately, right? Like as when you get casting confirmation, as you would, right? You confirm the character is going to be in a movie, and so people are going to go nuts over that. But I like to say, while everybody's looking that direction, you should be looking another direction, adjacent to that character. So my spec actually, if you're good with moving on, my spec actually revolves around Adam Warlock as well, but not Adam Warlock. So I did this, you said it earlier. We just, kind of spec in a similar way, or at least lately we have been. And that is, looking at who is around that Adam Warlock Guardians of the Galaxy world, a lot of people will point to Nova. Everybody thinks that Nova is coming as well. I don't disagree. I think Nova would be a very good addition, and at some point, he probably is going to show up. He's too popular of a character. I've even recently heard that he is the Spider-Man of the space realm, right? Like he is, Nova is. I don't know. I don't read enough Nova to know whether that's true or not, but I heard a collector recently say that, and I thought it was catchy enough to repeat. So my spec for the week is Kazar. So not Kazar, or Quasar, I guess, depends on how you're pronouncing it. Wendell Vaughn is the character. So Wendell Vaughn, who plays Kazar, is associated with the Guardians. He was in the Guardians of the Galaxy. He is associated with Warlock, and he is associated with Nova. All of these characters exist kind of in the same realm, and a lot of people kind of forget about it. Back in June of 2017, James Gunn actually tweeted an image of a Quasar brand VCR. Like, it was just a random thing that James Gunn decided to tweet a photo of, but it didn't mean anything. But it was also kind of like, hey, this is a character that is very associated with characters he is directing on screen. And he already is pulling in Warlock. People are talking about that he could be pulling in Nova at some point, or for Guardians 3. I mean, for all we know, for Guardians 3, he's pulling out all the stops. We know it's the last one. Last one for him for sure. So maybe he's going to pull out all the stops and we're going to get a lot of new characters. But the first Kazar, however you pronounce it, is Incredible Hulk 234 from 1979. This is his first appearance. The book is, I don't know, I would still put it in the relatively affordable section of the comic book store. It's certainly not a wall book. It's not one that's going to be high priced. But if you get into the higher grades, it is a first appearance book. It's from the Bronze Age. People are still picking this thing up. But you should be able to go out and find a good copy in the $100 ballpark, right? I think that's still completely doable. And I think it's a great spec, especially with all of the characters that are associated with this one. Again, covering your bases. If you're already, if you're priced out on Adam Warlock, or you've already secured your copy, or for whatever reason you just want to speculate around the character, this is a good way to go. It is worth mentioning that there are other characters who have eventually become Quasar, and the most popular one to speculate on would be Avril Kincaid.
That's the one that I would spec on if I'm going after Quasar, and the only reason why is because I feel like, you're kind of somewhat replacing, but not really, Gamora with Nebula, kind of. But if you want somebody more polished, I guess, more on the right side, on the good side, you can have her as a female, step into that role.
Well, and I was going to bring that up. I agree with that. Another reason why
that's my spec. That's my spec. Don't take
you
that.
You can't double that. You broke into what I was saying. No, here's why. So first appearance for this version of Quasar, Avril Kincaid, is in Captain America, Sam Wilson #7. So Captain America, Sam Wilson #7. It came out in May of 2016. It is a modern book, but it is the modern version of Captain America, right? Like, this is, when you look at the cover, it is a classic looking cover. It's kind of recreating the old Captain America logo, but on it you have Sam Wilson dressed as he was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I think it does play to what they already have in the Marvel Universe. Sam Wilson as Captain America. Avril Kincaid begins as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., So this could be a character that they introduce as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. to start with, who would become Quasar. So it again, there's a number of different ways they could play it. And are they going to start? Are they going to start with the origin, or are they going to start, with the original story?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense too. So just real quick, on that cover, it's really funny because Sam Wilson is like punching an old Steve Rogers right in the jaw. So I just think that's so funny. But when we last saw, what's his name, Nick Fury, where was he at? He was in space, right?
Yes.
So
yep.
That assumes that he's there. I'm sure he's not the only agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. there.
Now he's on vacation.
Yeah, but he's still, he was like in this huge thing with the scrolls. Maybe it's an agent out there and somehow they become, Admiral Kincaid becomes Quasar out there somehow. Right. So I just think that it has a lot of potential. I'm gonna be picking these up. These are right on my alley. They're like $3-4 books. Yeah.
And I think that all the, great options to spec on if you're looking for something that maybe while people are looking at Adam Warlock or in one direction, definitely go look in another direction that is still related to what's currently going on. That is how I like to spec, and it seems to work. Logically, it makes sense maybe. So
yeah, and not only that, man, but like do it with like if I get that 178 in high grade, I'm gonna be happy with it if Magus comes out or not, because it's a cool cover, right? Like, so I guess what I'm trying to say too is like, don't go off the beaten path if you're not okay with having to hold on to those books, right? Like, if I get those Kincaid books, $3, $4, and she never comes out, I spend $3 or $4 on them, right? Yeah. So I'm not too worried about it, right? And they're funny. Like, at least one of them is funny where he's punching old Steve Rogers.
Old Steve Rogers,
yeah. But if it does come out, or if they do come out or make a cameo or something, you just had a $3 or $4 book turn into $50 or $100.
And you know what? That might be Hydra Steve Rogers. Honestly, I don't know the story well enough, but that was about that time, right? That was back then?
It really was. It really was, but I just don't remember Hydra Steve Rogers being old like that. So that's interesting.
Oh, good point. I don't know. Either way, if it was Hydra Steve Rogers, he definitely deserved it.
For sure, especially to be on the cover, getting punched in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Well, which is funny because the callback on that cover would be to Captain America #1, where Steve Rogers
punching
out,
a Nazi.
Not any Nazi, Hitler.
Oh,
it is
Hitler.
He's knocking Hitler out on that cover, which so now you're relating Steve Rogers to Hitler. So now this has to be Hydra Steve Rogers. How else do you justify punching Captain America? So, all right. Well, I'm gonna have to go look into that.
Same. Way to go.
We'll read the book. It's a dollar bin book. We'll find it. So
yeah.
Okay. That kind of wraps it up for the night. This is episode 15, Spec Tales. Everybody, thank you very much for listening. Jesus and I really appreciate it. If you like what you've heard, go back, listen to some of the previous episodes if you haven't. And if you have, head on over to Apple Podcasts and just give us a quick review. Throw out a few stars. And if you have just a few moments, write a quick review about what you're liking, what you're not. And we'd really appreciate that. That helps other people find us. If you have a Grail tale of your own, we would love to tell your Grail tale. Whether you have another pre-code horror one, we would take another one of those. We are looking for an Amazing Fantasy 15 Grail tale. We don't have one of those yet. But in general, we'll pretty much take anything. If you've got a story that you find interesting about how you landed the one book that you always wanted or something like that, give us a shout. You can reach us at spectalespodcast@gmail.com or at spec_tales_podcast on Instagram. Those are the two ways to get a hold of us. Reach out. We're very friendly. We'll contact you back. We've got a lot of good guests coming up in the coming weeks. I don't want to tease it, but we've got a couple of really big guests coming. So we're excited. Stay tuned for future episodes. And once again, thanks everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. Have a good week.